Hey, Lions Nation! We're back with another exclusive video bringing you all the latest news about our beloved Detroit Lions. Before we get started, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you never miss anything about the team now. Let's get into the news. No one in Cincinnati had ever seen Joe Burrow like this. Calm, controlled, collected. Joe Burrow, the quarterback who played with ice in his veins, had reached a breaking point, and the NFL had no idea what was coming, because when the face of a franchise delivers an ultimatum, it echoes through front offices, locker rooms, boardrooms, stadiums, and entire cities. And this ultimatum wasn't small. It wasn't a warning. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a line drawn in fire, a detonator duct taped to the heart of an organization already struggling under the weight of expectations, and it all centered around one name, one player, one arrival that Burrow swore would destroy everything he had built in Cincinnati. When the rumor leaked that Detroit, rising, powerful, fearless Detroit, was pushing aggressively for one of the league's most controversial superstars, Burrow's world shifted, because that same player had a history with him, a history that the public didn't fully understand, a history that Burrow never wanted to reopen. But the Bengals front office, desperate, hungry, tired of postseason heartbreak, saw opportunity. They saw a splash move, a blockbuster addition, a power shift in the AFC North. They wanted the weapon. Burrow wanted distance. It started quietly. A conversation behind closed doors lasts only 7 minutes. But those 7 minutes trigger weeks of chaos. Burrow walked into the executive office with a look no one recognized. Tight jaw, sharp eyes, hands shaking not with fear, but with controlled rage. He laid out his ultimatum with brutal clarity. If he signs here, I don't stay. Executives froze. No one dared interrupt him, even the owner, usually firm, measured, and emotionally detached, leaned back in silence as Burrow spoke about respect, betrayal, and the kind of toxicity that destroys locker rooms from the inside out. When he walked out of that room, slamming the door behind him, everyone inside knew the stakes had changed. Someone leaked the conversation. No one admitted it. But the moment it reached the media, the NFL went nuclear. Headlines exploded across every platform. Burrow threatens exit. Bengals in crisis. Detroit move could end Cincy era. Fans panicked. Analysts speculated. Rival teams circled like vultures. And Detroit? They kept moving forward, because Detroit wasn't chasing controversy. They were chasing destiny. After adding elite pieces year after year, after transforming their culture from hopeless to heroic, after turning Ford Field into a cauldron of noise and belief, Detroit understood one truth: champions are built on ruthlessness. And Dan Campbell, the man who preached kneecaps and grit, wasn't afraid to add fire to his fire. The player in question, Burrow's enemy, Detroit's obsession, had a reputation forged in both brilliance and chaos. A playmaker whose talent bent games, but whose attitude bent locker rooms. The kind of athlete who thrived on chaos, who carried storms inside his chest, whose highlight reels were matched only by headlines about arguments, tensions, and fractured relationships. Burrow had lived that story once. He refused to live it again, but Detroit believed they could control the storm. They believed the environment they built, a brotherhood forged in pain, pride, and purpose, was strong enough to contain anyone. They believed Campbell could tame the untamable, and while the league argued about morality, chemistry, and risk, Detroit focused on one question: can he help us win a Super Bowl? Inside the Lions facility, something electric buzzed in the air. Coaches whispered in hallways. Scouts studied tape deep into the night. Defensive leaders talked among themselves, debating whether the potential addition would elevate the team or fracture it. But the truth, the one no one spoke aloud, was simple. Detroit was already changing. They weren't a feel-good underdog anymore. They were a threat, a real one, a juggernaut in transition. And championship teams don't shy from controversy. They weaponize it. So Detroit pushed harder. They initiated calls. They prepared offers. They cleared cap projections. And as the negotiations intensified, the rumor mill exploded with velocity. Cincinnati felt the pressure. Detroit ignored it. Burrow watched it all unfold with dread, because he knew this story before the first chapter began. He knew how it ended. And when the moment arrived, when a reporter grabbed him as he walked to practice and asked what he thought of the Detroit situation, he didn't sidestep it with cliches. He didn't hide. He didn't soften. He simply said the words that would shake the NFL: I meant what I said. From that moment on, the league lost its mind. Before we move on, take a second to drop a like and subscribe. That way, you'll stay up to date with every exclusive Lions update. And you'll even have a chance to win an official Detroit Lions jersey. Let's keep going. The fallout was instant and violent. Cincinnati fans erupted into war against each other, some siding with Burrow, some siding with the front office, some begging the team to call Detroit's bluff and dare them to finalize the signing. National shows dedicated full hours to dissecting Burrow's ultimatum. Was it leadership? Was it ego? Was it fear? Was it justified? Burrow refused interviews, refused press conferences, refused to entertain speculation. He trained harder, longer, angrier. Teammates noticed the change, the quiet edge. The longer film sessions, the distant stare every time Detroit's name appeared on the screen. But behind the scenes, Detroit pushed the situation toward its breaking point. They sent their GM to meet with the controversial superstar. They coordinated a multi-team deal that would shock the league if approved. They prepared a reveal video before anything was even official. And then came the moment that nearly broke the NFL. A flight tracker pinged at midnight. A private jet from Dallas landed in Detroit. Fans online exploded. Journalists raced to confirm. Detroit's social media team posted a cryptic lion emoji, and Burrow, watching from his Cincinnati penthouse, hands clenched, felt the temperature in the room freeze. Because if that player stepped foot into Allen Park, it meant the Bengals were being cornered. It meant his ultimatum had become a ticking bomb. It meant Cincinnati was about to force him into a decision he had prayed he'd never face: leave the city that adored him, or stay in a locker room poisoned by a presence he believed would destroy everything he'd fought to build. But the league wasn't ready for what happened next. Because Detroit didn't just meet with the player, they recorded everything, not for cameras, not for social media, for themselves, to judge whether the risk matched the reward. And inside that meeting, a meeting that would later be whispered about like folklore, Detroit discovered what Cincinnati never considered. The player wasn't the villain Burrow remembered. He wasn't the chaos machine the media marketed him as. He wasn't the time bomb Cincinnati feared. He was something more complicated, broken, bitter, misunderstood, but talented beyond logic. And Campbell, a man whose superpower was seeing the light inside people cracked by pressure, believed he could reshape him, rebuild him, redeem him in Detroit's war room. Opinions split violently. Half the executives wanted the signing, half feared it, but Detroit didn't operate by democracy. They operated by belief, and Campbell believed. Meanwhile, Cincinnati's ownership was spiraling. They weren't just afraid of losing a quarterback, they were afraid of losing the quarterback. The franchise, the hope, the future, the identity of the team. Word leaked that 3 rival franchises had already prepared proposals just in case Burrow actually hit the market. One executive was quoted anonymously: "If Burrow becomes available, every quarterback in the league becomes disposable." Pressure mounted, agents circled, players texted cryptically, and Burrow, despite the storm around him, refused to waver. He held the line. He didn't bend. He didn't blink, because he meant what he said. He would not share a locker room with that man again. He would walk. Then the NFL entered its darkest hour. The Detroit deal entered final stages. Papers drafted, compensation arranged, a press conference tentatively scheduled, and Burrow snapped. It wasn't a public explosion. It wasn't a dramatic TV moment. It was a private, devastating confrontation, an eruption behind closed doors that involved shouting, accusations, and a truth finally revealed. The history between Burrow and the player Detroit was signing was far deeper, far darker, far more personal than the league ever knew. Something that happened at LSU, something that fractured trust forever, something that Burrow refused to relive. And at the last possible second, minutes before Detroit pulled the trigger, the deal collapsed. Not because of money, not because of cap space, not because of negotiations. Because the player himself refused to sign. He walked away, stood in front of cameras at the airport, and said words that shocked the world. "Joe Burrow doesn't deserve what he fears. I won't be the reason he leaves Cincinnati." Detroit fans collapsed emotionally, heartbreak and respect mixing violently. Cincinnati fans wept with relief, and Burrow, finally breathing again, finally calm, finally human, whispered the only thing he had left in him: "Thank you." The NFL had survived the closest thing it ever had to a quarterback civil war. But the league would never forget this saga, and Detroit walked away stronger, not with a player, but with the respect of millions, because for the first time in NFL history, A blockbuster collapsed not because of contracts, but because of humanity. We bring you the latest Lions news every single day, so make sure you're subscribed. Hit that like button and turn on notifications so you don't miss a thing, and of course, drop a comment below with your thoughts on today's news. Your voice makes a difference for Lions Nation. See you in the next video.